Finally, Berserk Chapter 361 is here. Yo. As you're probably aware due to my initial reaction, I'm a huge Berserk fan. To be honest, I wasn't even a long-time fan like most people who've been reading for 20 some odd years. Short backstory. I'm scrolling the usual anime streaming sites, trying to find the newest and latest episode of Terraform Mars Season 1, circa 2014, when a random ad shows a clip of a pale white-haired dude and a brawly-looking brunette dude swinging his giant sword in rage. I'm like, this looks interesting. So I click on it, and it brings me to a part of the site that has all the episodes. I read the description. Berserk, Golden Age Arc 1, The Egg of the King. Guts, an immensely strong sword for hire, has little direction in his life, simply fighting one battle after the next. However, this all changed suddenly when he meets and is bested by Griffith, a beautiful and charismatic young man who leads the band of the Hawk mercenary army. After Guts joins the band and the relationship between the two men begins to blossom, Casca, the tough, lone swordswoman in the band of the Hawk, struggles to accept Guts and the influence he has on the world around her. While the two begin to fight together, Griffith continues to rise to power, all seemingly in order to reach his mysterious prophesized goals. What lengths will Guts and Griffith go in order to reach these goals? And where will fate take the two men? Right before I click on to watch the movie, I see a comment that says, "This is a remake. You need to go watch the original 97 anime to get full context." So I'm like, hold up, this ain't even the original? Let me go do some digging. Long story short, I watched the 97 anime literally in like 2 days. I fall in love with Berserk, and then I go read the manga and fall in love even more. Nothing new to Berserk fans. To the point, Chapter 361 is here and we've been waiting. Too long. Once again, so let's discuss. So as we all know in the last chapter, we were introduced to Casca regaining sense of her old self before the eclipse. It was a short chapter that showed that Casca has now regressed in her combat ability, even though she says she's out of touch. But as a lot of us have come to expect, that whenever she comes into contact with Guts, she has a panic attack, and the memories of that fateful eclipse resurface. Therefore, Guts purposely tries to stay away out of her vicinity in order to not damage her mind, ending with Guts doing what he does best, brooding over a cliff, swinging his sword to clear his mind, wondering what's next after accomplishing his main goal of restoring Casca. And in the midst of doing so, the Skull Knight appears before him, telling him he is near the end of his journey, and it is here Chapter 261 picks up. Upon their reunion, Guts greets the Skull Knight by thanking him for his advice and to reassure that his warnings didn't come to pass as he is still in one piece. The Skull Knight agrees, but says for Guts to not let his guard down, for casualty has yet to converge. Guts takes slight offense, and as he plans to clap back, the old wizard Gedfrin interjects and greets the Skull Knight as Your Majesty, meaning he has confirmed to a lot of us theorists about the Skull Knight being King Gysric, and also reassures that King Gysric has been on this island before, being older than Gedfrin, making Guts suspicious about the knight's identity after being labeled as the Majesty. Upon their dialogue, it is revealed that Gedfrin is much older than his appearance gives away, and that time flows way differently for a wizard than for an ordinary mortal like Guts. Seeing how the Skull Knight and Guts are alike, and how their fates are aligned, he suggests the Skull Knight accompany them on their way to visit a revered blacksmith called Hanar on the island to repair their gear, and Gysric acknowledges, also revealing that it is the same dwarven blacksmith that created and molded both the Skull Knight's armor and the Berserker armor. We cut to Shirke, who has now found camaraderie with the other young witches on Helfhelm. They are trying to instruct her on how to fly on a broom, which seems to be kind of a difficult task for her. Thinking that she has accomplished flying, she realizes one of the older witches, Morda, has picked her up and whisked her away from the group. In the midst of her nap, Mortar catched a glimpse of Gedfrin, the Skull Knight, and Guts heading down the side of a cliff, and decides to go with her curiosity to see what they're up to, but takes Shirkei along with her without permission. Throughout their interaction, it seems Morta has taken a liking to Shirkei, and throughout her time with Elfhelm, have formed a sisterly bond, singling out Shirkei under the wing to help her with her abilities. As the flying lesson continues, Morta has been following the trio down a ravine and points it out to Shirkei. Both of their curiosity take hold, and they investigate what the three men plan to do. Following the three men down the cavern reveals darker creatures like goblins, wickermen, fungi, crows, giant insects, and reptiles, showing that there is a duality to Elfhelm, kind of like an underworld to the happy-go fairyland paradise on the upper side of the island. Navigating through this cavern, Morta and Shirkei run into an old crone who is revealed to Shirkei as Morta's master, Granny Vole, meaning that Morta more than likely utilizes dark magic, unlike what is taught above. Shirkei introduces herself to Granny Vole, stating that she is the pupil of Flora, and the old witch seems to recognize who Flora is, surprising Shirkei. Morta asks her master where Gedfrin is leading the Guts and Skull Knight, and Granny Vole reveals that he is taking them to the Stone Forest, which is the home of the dwarves. The pair move on and say their goodbyes to Granny Vole, and find the Skull Knight's steed and Gedfrin's mount parked in front of an entrance of a place called the Barites. They get off their brooms, and Morta recommends they continue their pursuit on foot. Finally catching up to the trio in the next panel reveals Gedfrin calling on Hanar, who looks strikingly similar to Godot, Guts' friend and personal blacksmith that forges Dragonslayer, whom immediately refers to the Skull Knight as King, and the Skull Knight refers to him as a friend, thanking him for the armor that keeps him in good health. In typical dwarven fashion, he dismisses the compliment and turns to Guts, recognizing the Berserker armor, saying that he'd never see that armor again. Gedfrin asks Hanar to explain to Guts the purpose of the Berserker armor. Guts thanks him for the armor, stating that it's pulled him back from the brink of death on many occasions. Hanar dismisses the compliment and says that Guts has made the armor his own given the way it fits his build. That just because he used it doesn't mean he mastered it, and that the armor is liable to turn, possess, and consume its host. Immediately after stating this, Hanar slams his hammer onto Guts' armor, activating the Beast of Darkness, residing in the armor to possess Guts, concluding the chapter. Now, what are we to take from this latest chapter? So far, we've gotten a couple of key revelations. First, King Gysric is the Skull Knight. We are given 4 instances where he is referred to as King or Majesty, first by Gedfrin, then by Granny Vole, and finally by Hanar. Plus, it seems like the Skull Knight is the living embodiment of some kind of prophecy. Number 2, we've gotten confirmation that time flows slower for the denizens of Elfhelm, but I'm not sure if either they age slower or the atmosphere slows down time while the outside world goes by as usual. So therefore, it's possible that once Guts leaves Elfhelm, if he even leaves Elfhelm, that either time will catch up with them or they will be propelled years into the future. And lastly, that it's possible that Flora is originally from Elfhelm, given the fact that Granny Vole knows of her, since Shirkei has knowledge of summoning dark spirits that Flora was a pupil of Vole, or was just simply a witch who trained in the dark and light arts of Elfhelm. What can we expect for the future of Berserk, especially now that we are getting answers in more recent chapters? Will Guts finally master the Berserker armor now that he's met the blacksmith who created it? Will Meteor give us more consistent chapters, or are we in for another long hiatus? I really hope not, but given recent history of Berserk chapters, it doesn't look like we're back to regular scheduled programming. Sound off in the comments of what you thought of the recent chapter. I really don't know why I waited so long to create a Berserk-based video, as it is my favorite manga of all time. Give this video a like if you appreciate the content and would like to discuss more Berserk lore on this channel. As always, you know the vibes. This is Kaizoku Sleven. Appreciate you.